Welcome to Walk About the Galaxy, the face-to-face astronomy podcast where the science is universal, the opinions are personal, and the hosts are reunited.
But still from a
There's
distance.
some kind of song that goes that way, but I don't know. Isn't it?
Yeah.
No idea what you're talking
Yes.
You don't know what
And
I'm
it
talking
feels so
about?
good.
Reunited, it feels so good.
Yeah.
about. Okay.
We are Strange Charm and Top the Astroquarks, also known as Josh Caldwell,
Addie Dove.
And Jim Cooney.
coming to you from the new outdoor Walkabout Studios in Orlando, Florida. Our stumpers today are daredevil-y.
Uh-oh. Like the
And I-
movie?
Yeah. No, the TV show.
No,
The TV show?
The Netflix
No.
show.
not
None of
really.
those. None of the above.
None of the above. Jim, because I know you're a real daredevil.
Yeah.
Anybody who's like stamp collecting, Scrabble playing guy, watch out. This is
learned-
somebody you do not want to
I
mess
learned
with.
recently on John Oliver's segment about the Postal Service, which
Yeah.
is also an amazing band. But that they
There's an
encourage-
amazing band called the Postal Service.
There is.
They are
But they a while back were strongly encouraging things like stamp collecting to make money.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
saw
John
that.
Oliver has special ones you can buy, and he's like, go
But
buy
Jim
stamps.
isn't helping the Postal Service out
I'm
because he's
really hurting them because all I use is stamps that were paid for 50, 60 years ago.
Do you
And
actually
now
You're
I'm
the
using-
reason they're doing so
Yes,
poorly.
I use those stamps as postage now because they're so common, and so I don't pay for any postage.
you haven't bought an actual new stamp. You haven't bought a stamp from the Postal Service in your life,
Right.
probably.
Well,
Yeah.
in a long time. Yeah.
All right.
You
Well,
buy
anyway.
a collector's one sometimes.
Occasionally.
All right. Well, anyway, you wild and crazy stamp collector. Your choices are Vomit Comet or skydiving. I'm guessing that you have not done either of these two things.
I have done neither of those things. I will never do either of those things.
Oh,
However, if you
'cause you-
forced me
yeah,
onto one or the other,
and I will.
then I would do the Vomit Comet, I think.
Okay, cool.
I don't know. I don't know how much of this I can speak about on the on air, but the
You can speak about all of it, even if we were on air, and we're not.
we're not.
So
we're just sitting around on Josh's porch.
We're in air.
Talking about this, but yeah, I have a real problem with drops. It's just like on roller coasters, it goes up and up and
Yeah.
up and up, and then it drops.
It does do that.
All the rest of the roller coaster ride is fine and fun, and I enjoy that, of course. But the big main first drop, I hate.
well, that's
So-
what the Vomit Comet is.
But it doesn't
I
feel
know.
like that.
Right, but because you can't see, right? I mean, I guess
No, they
you can
usually
if you
block
want
the windows
to.
off.
Right.
You don't have a sensation. So the Vomit Comet, we should just remind our listeners, is any
Everybody
airplane
knows,
really
Josh.
that flies parabolic maneuvers. It's sort of an airplane that flies the ultimate up and down roller coaster ride and gives you like 15, 20 seconds of weightlessness in the airplane.
Right.
And it does it over and over and over again. And on the pull-up, you weigh like twice as much. You feel like you weigh twice as much as normal. Addie and I have done a lot of these flights to do experiments on them. And depending on your constitution, if you're like me, you have a tendency to get sick unless you've got some powerful drugs helping you out.
You know better recently.
The drugs were awesome. The drugs were miraculous. And but
I did
yeah,
a drug-free my last 2 flights.
yeah. Well, you're a tougher person than I am.
Yeah.
But I will say that I used to feel the same way you do, Jim, about the big drops on a roller coaster.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I love twisty, turny, high G roller coasters.
Yes.
But the big falling roller coasters, I didn't.
Yeah.
But after I went on the Vomit Comet a couple times, like whatever.
Maybe I
Bring
don't
it
feel that
on.
way. I don't know, but I get so scared when you're getting closer and closer and closer.
Yeah.
And then when it falls, I get this very sharp pain in my undercarriage. It's very, very.
Is
So
that
I would
because you pooped your
argue-
pants or something?
no, there's none of that. I just.
So I would argue that on the Vomit Comet, it's typically much more gentle than that.
It is.
So it's
Yeah.
a slow coming out of it, and you float up. You don't feel like it's dropping. You float up, off the ground.
Right,
And
right.
so
I
it's
think that would be
very
okay.
Gentle.
I think that I would probably puke, but I think it'd be okay.
They also
and I would
typically,
never jump out of a damn airplane. That would
ease
just
you
be
into
terrifying.
It. So they do Martian,
Yeah.
and then lunar, and then zero these days.
It is true that
Martian is the worst.
the sensation is that not that, oh my gosh, I'm falling. It's just that, hey, the floor is going away from me.
Yeah.
Come back, floor.
I'm
Yeah.
so light now.
I would do that.
Yeah.
I would do that.
I like you. I am like you in that way, really. I have a fear of the ability to jump off of a high thing. So, if I'm at the top of a building and there's a safety barrier there so that it's physically impossible for me to go over the edge in a moment of madness, I'm totally fine.
Yeah.
But if you put me on the top of a 3-story building with a roof that's just got an edge there, I am like weak in the knees.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah. At the Grand Canyon and stuff, I had a
And
real
people
problem.
will say, well, why would you jump? I'm like, it doesn't matter why I would jump.
just that you could.
Just
right?
the
Or somebody could just
possibility.
come along and shove you.
And bump you.
One of the times I went skydiving, I was the first. One of the first people to go. I've only gone tandem when I've gone skydiving, so you're like strapped to somebody.
Yeah.
And I think the second time I went, we were gonna go first, and so they have to like figure out if you're in the right spot. So I was already strapped to the guy, and he's like leaning over the edge of the open door, like outside of the plane, to see if we're in the right spot. But that means I was also like being leaned
over
over the edge. It was pretty.
Yeah,
That was
So
a little nervous.
You've done both, which is why you did not get that stumper. Your stumper, Addie, I chose a couple of things that I could see you doing both of them, because you're even wilder and crazier than our stamp collecting friend.
Hardly.
So deep sea submersible, think like 2 miles down, like down to visit the Titanic,
Yeah.
or a full winter in Antarctica,
Ooh.
I think the deep sea submersible.
because you get it over with.
Because I don't know. I don't know. That seems super cool. Unless it's like some sort of
'Cause that's
there's
like
a
a-
sea monster situation.
That's
But
like a
it's-
one-day trip, right? It's
Yeah,
not
I think it'd be super cool to participate in NEMO, which is the like longer term underwater habitat project that NASA has off the Keys.
Oh, yeah.
So they do like, because you can, if you do like neutral buoyancy, like you're in some sort of suit, but you like balance, you weight yourself, right? It's like doing operations for space things. And so I think it'd be super cool, but I would totally go in a deep sea submersible. I think I would winter over in Antarctica, but I haven't seen any I haven't had any strong inkling to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like if you wouldn't be willing to winter over in Antarctica, you're probably not willing to like go out on a 6-month
Trip
space mission
to Mars or something.
or a ISS or anything like
How
that.
about
right?
like 3 weeks to Antarctica in the summer?
That would be. I want to do ANSMET. I want to do the meteorite hunting trips.
Yeah.
So I would 100% do that.
Yeah, these things all actually, except for the deep sea submersible, Antarctica has a lot of astrophysical, astronomical benefits. That these great sheets of snow and ice are perfect for hunting meteorites because they're dark against a infinite sea of
Yeah.
white. And
There's a lot of
dear listeners, if
astrobiology.
you hear explosions in the background, it's not a serial killer.
It's just
apparently-
Florida people scaring away wildlife from their agriculture.
Yes.
Because that's how you buy fireworks in Florida.
That's the way you can use fireworks legally here. Somebody's really decided to go nuts with fireworks today. It's May 15th. I don't know if there's something special about that.
It's a Friday. Yeah.
We're used to that in the 4th of July and New Year's Eve.
and
but-
the like plus or minus 3 days of those.
Right, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
well, today...
Oh, but I was going to say also
Oh,
in
yeah.
Antarctica, there's people do trips, usually during the summer, for the Antarctic dry valleys, where there's a lot of good astrobiology, sort of like extreme environment that you can study down there. So there's lots of cool stuff you can do in Antarctica.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of telescopes down at the
Right.
very,
Ooh, yeah,
very South
South
Pole.
Pole.
Which we've spoken about some of them. There's some specialized telescopes,
Right.
not necessarily optical telescopes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Usually things you
telescopes
wanna
that
be
are
cold.
using. I mean, it's very dry, and so the seeing is very good down there, and or the air has
The
very
air
little
is
moisture
dry,
in it. Yeah.
right.
Which means that you can do better infrared things and stuff like that. Plus, just very special. You can stare at the same plot of sky continuously because you're at one of the poles.
And you see a whole hemisphere, and you see that hemisphere year round.
Yeah.
For all time, basically. Yeah. Well, today we will talk about, speaking of dry atmospheres, I don't know, that's a weak segue, Pluto's atmosphere.
works.
The nature of the universe and implications for the origin of life, your usual
As one does.
your usual cash topics.
Yeah.
A lot of space news and, of course, trivia. But first, this episode of Walkabout the Galaxy is brought to you by Solar Wind. When you're out and about, do you enjoy the gentle touch of a summer breeze? On your Walkabout the Galaxy, let the solar wind add a breath of fresh plasma to your journey with a vigorously stiff breeze of protons and electrons, traveling at several hundred kilometers per second. But you won't need a windbreaker thanks to our barely perceptible pressure of mere nanopascals, coupled with a toasty 100,000 degree temperature. The solar wind is happy to be your companion on your walk about the solar system. The solar wind. Central heating for kids.
I think that last line was a bit of a stretch.
So
You don't want to expose your kids to solar wind.
It's the solar wind is central heating
Okay.
because it's coming
the
from the
center of the solar
sun,
system.
the center of the solar system,
Okay.
and it's central heating, and it's for kids and grown-ups
for
alike.
everyone, all ages.
All ages, right? But central heating for kids is a tagline.
I
of
assumed
something,
it was, yeah.
a real thing.
That's a weird
I
one.
didn't think that was just some subset of words you decided to put together.
It was a kind of weird one. But
is.
I was like, okay,
Central heating for
central
kids.
heating for kids.
I can't even guess what kind of a product that would be.
Where's the center of a kid?
In their
His
heart.
belly.
The belly.
Oh.
So it might be
like
something,
some kind of
Hot cocoa.
hot chocolate
Swiss
thing.
Miss.
Yeah.
something along those.
Hershey's.
Ovaltine.
Think healthier.
Hot
Whatever.
Tang.
No.
Carnation Instant Breakfast.
Hot Tang.
That used to be a
sounds
thing. No,
awful.
that's awesome. That's my favorite hot drink. We used to
Oh,
drink that in Boy Scouts.
I'm vomiting in my mouth a little bit right now.
It's so good. I would much rather have that than coffee, tea, or hot chocolate. Deal with it.
Also
You-
a good expletive. Hot tang.
You are one strange dude.
No. That's true.
So yeah, I just think it's hilarious that Think Healthier, you went from hot cocoa to hot Tang.
It's not healthy. You're right.
So no, it's something called Ready Breck, which is
So like
hot.
Carnation Instant Breakfast.
No, hot oatmeal.
So oatmeal.
Oatmeal.
That
It's
is.
I don't have cold oatmeal super often.
So it's now
I do
owned.
sometimes.
Have you heard of Weetabix cereal?
I have.
So it's owned
I
by
watch
Weetabix,
British
and
things.
I looked it up. It's for sale. You can get some
In the
It's-
UK or in the US?
It is a UK based
Mm-hmm.
thing, but you can get it. It's on Amazon. So you can get a box of Ready Breck Central
All right,
Heating.
I'm
was-
ordering
that was
it
a
for our
tough one.
next gathering.
Central Heating for kids.
And you can mix in some tang if you want for some flavor.
Tang is so good.
So there's
so fascinated by this.
we're here in our outdoor walkabout studios. We're not as outdoor as I had originally planned because it's raining.
Because it turns out Florida in May means tropical storms this year.
Right.
A little early.
From our new outdoor walkabout studios, we have a nice line of sight view of rockets taking off from the Florida Space Coast, and it's a busy rocket taking off time. This weekend, there are 2 rockets scheduled: a United Launch Alliance Atlas 5 of a U.S. military space plane thingy. The next day, guess what? Anytime somebody asks you to guess what rocket launch will be coming, you should guess.
Starlink.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another 60 Starlink satellites from SpaceX, which will bring them up to over, I think, will this bring them to 480?
I've lost count. It's just like days.
It's
I've
just
lost
like
count.
it's just like days in coronavirus lockdown. It's just blurring together.
Yeah.
That's coming up, and then in less than 2 weeks we're recording this on May 15th. On May 27th is the first scheduled flight of U.S. astronauts from the United States on a mission called ridiculously
Demo 2.
Demo 2.
Such inspiring.
Yes. So SpaceX rocket, Falcon 9 with a Crew Dragon capsule, and 2 astronauts, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, who have flown to space before.
Yeah.
They're now in routine quarantine before their launch.
Are they at the house on Cocoa?
I don't know exactly where.
I don't know which
Yeah.
quarantine location.
So there's a lot of launches coming up. So maybe that's why there are all these explosions going on outside my house right now.
Lots of celebrations.
Yeah.
Maybe people are celebrating Friday.
The-
Yeah. So many launches.
Right.
It
I'm
was
excited
very
about
cute,
the
by the way, how
X-37B.
excited you got when Josh started to mention that. Your love of manned spaceflight
Human.
is amusing. Human spaceflight. My
Thank you.
apologies.
I've seen a bunch of articles this week that said manned, and it made me angry. Although
Yeah,
there are
it's
2
all
men
right.
flying this time.
I'm trying to break that habit.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's
I
challenging.
am too. It's ingrained in myself from the 60s.
So by
Yeah.
the style guide, if you're still referring to the 60s flights, you can still refer to them as manned. But any new flights are crewed or human.
Okay. So that's exciting. Are there other?
Can we talk about the X-37B for a second?
Sure.
Though? Yeah.
What's that?
That's the little space plane that's launching on the Atlas rocket this weekend. So it's a military space plane, and it's
unhumaned.
It's unhumaned. Yes, it's a autonomous plane, but then it's like a mini space shuttle. It's the little mini space shuttle we see sometimes.
Yeah,
so
it lands on a runway.
It does. Yeah, it comes in and it just looks like a little space shuttle. You just need a scale bar to know.
It looks like one of the model rocket versions of a shuttle.
Yeah.
Right. It looks like one of the things you'd put on top of an Estes
How large
rocket.
is it actually?
What?
How large is it actually?
What an
It's just this.
interesting
Compared
It's like
to-
a toy. No, it's large enough to fit in a payload fairing of a rocket.
question. Yeah.
So it's not anywhere close to the size of the space shuttle.
Right.
But it has little wings and it comes in and lands like that.
And it's like painted and looks like a space shuttle.
Yeah.
Similar colors.
And what is its purpose? Do we not know? Because it's
Classified.
military.
So that's classified, although there's a few things we know about this time. So first of all, this is its 6th mission. So it's flown 6 times. And last time it flew for over 2 years. It was up for like 780 days. And it only came back like less than 6 months ago, I think.
Oh, really?
And they're
Yeah.
putting it up again, which is pretty cool. This time it has they've released a couple of the payloads. So one of them is called FalconSat 8, which is these little CubeSats that they built mostly at the Air Force Academy, and so the cadets all get a chance to like develop instrumentation and stuff like that. And I've actually worked with some of those folks.
They're like, it sounds like Armageddon almost outside.
We'll just pretend like it's 4th of July.
Outside my
Time has
house.
no meaning. It's 4th of July.
Somebody is blowing up a lot of stuff near the Walkabout Studios.
It was the first like rain of the season. They're real excited about
they're
that.
celebrating our return to live face-to-face recording.
Better sound
There you
quality. So there's that, and then there's some like seeds they're taking up and some other materials to study radiation effects. And this is the first time there's going to be a little like payload bay thing underneath the belly of the plane too,
Okay, with something in it
with
or something.
the other things in
Probably
it.
spy stuff or something.
Yeah, I mean it's all like we're advancing technology and demonstrations for space. Oh, now there's a frog too.
It's a field expedition recording of Walkabout the Galaxy with explosions, wildlife, rainstorms.
But Beauty Quark is doing a very good job of muting her laughter.
Who knows? Yes, we're recording this in front of a live audience of one, as one does in the new COVID-19 era. I saw an article about in Germany musicians doing one-on-one concerts.
Oh,
So
wow.
a single flutist would perform in front of a single person in the airport in Stuttgart.
Flautist.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's the
You don't have to
X-37B.
flout your highfalutin education.
Yeah.
The X-37B, so that's
I love it. It's so cool.
That's taking off tomorrow morning. I
Yep.
think from what
I probably won't see it. I'm not gonna lie.
well, also it depends on the weather forecast. It's
What
not
time?
super awesome because
8:24.
8:24.
A little early for me.
So, speaking of human spaceflight, today is actually the anniversary of the final flight of the Mercury program. Gordon Cooper
Cooper.
was the 6th and final flight in the Mercury program. There were 7 Mercury astronauts, but only 6 of them flew in the Mercury program. Then they moved to the Gemini
Yep.
program, which means it was also the last solo flight of a U.S. astronaut. And he was in orbit for a day and a half. He was the first U.S. astronaut to sleep in space.
Oh.
He was up there for 34 hours, and there was something funky on the auto reentry stuff. So he autopiloted. He flew the whole reentry manually,
wow.
and it was the most precise, accurate landing of all the Mercury. He landed 4 miles away from the recovery ship.
Nice.
So well done, Gordon
Gordo.
Cooper. That was 57 years ago today.
I've been watching For All Mankind. We watched the first season of it. It's like an Apple Plus
Oh, that's
show.
this alternate history
It's
thing.
an alternate history thing where the Russians beat us to the moon
Do you know why I don't like alternate histories?
because they're not real.
Yes.
Okay. It's interesting though. So there's this whole big women's movement thing as part of it. So like very early on, women become astronauts. It's an interesting show. There's some of the physics they don't do very well, but like overall, I actually it's an interesting alternate history. Like it's interesting how it pushes us.
Yeah.
But there's one of the main characters is a Gordo.
Okay.
They only have a few of the astronauts, so like Buzz Aldrin is there, but most of the other astronauts that fly are like not real
Not
astronauts.
characters.
Yeah,
They're-
they're just characters. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But they do. Sorry.
Go ahead.
But they do have Molly Cobb as a character, and she was one of the Mercury 13, which were the women astronauts who trained at the same time as the Mercury 7
is that a
men
real
astronauts,
history?
and it's a real history, and she's actually one of them.
Oh.
So they had a couple of those like sort of original women astronauts. They never flew or
Right.
anything, but they did all of the same testing and performed better
That's
for a
cool.
lot of it.
That's cool. Other space news. We talked a few episodes ago about this comet called Comet Atlas that people were excited about briefly,
Sort of got brighter.
because it got
Astronomy nerds are still a little bit excited. Not like totally geeked out, but I've seen a lot of images of it recently and so forth. It's attracting astronomical attention.
Yeah.
But
well,
not-
it disintegrated, so it's not going to be a nice bright,
Right. Yeah.
naked eye comet or daytime comet or anything like that. But there's a kind of cool, lucky, serendipitous thing happening with it, which is that the European Solar Orbiter spacecraft, which is orbiting close to the sun, one of these solar observing spacecraft, is actually going to fly through the tails with an S.
Is Solar Orbiter the one that's doing a more polar orbit, right?
I
think?
believe
I
so.
think we talked about that
Yes, I believe so.
recently? Because it launched relatively recently?
Yes, so we have Solar Orbiter and the Parker
Yeah.
Solar Probe
PSP.
complementing each other.
I think Solar Orbiter is the more polar one.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
So it's going to fly through the tails.
Tails.
Why do comets have tails?
They're like cats.
Cat o' nine tails?
No. They have tails because they come apart and they leave little debris behind them, basically.
but not really behind them.
But not really. Oh, exactly. Not always behind them, right? This
Partially,
is actually
so,
a,
yeah,
this
they
is
have-
actually a question on one of my final
It's a,
tests.
this is a
semester.
this is
Yeah.
a topic that's on every intro astronomy.
and upper level
Astronomy
if you want to
101.
ask more detailed
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're typically we talk about two tails, an ion tail or plasma tail, and a dust tail. The dust tail is basically behind. I mean, it's trails in the orbit. It fills the orbit of the. I mean, ultimately, a lot of meteor showers that we have are when the Earth passes across the orbital path of some comet, and we run through debris that was dumped out. In that
Comets are
comet's
basically
tail.
like Hansel and Gretel. They leave little
little breadcrumbs.
breadcrumbs about where they've been.
Yeah.
But the sun pushes that stuff around.
It does. Sun's a big bully.
Right. So the kind of biggest bright tail, I think, is the ion tail, right? Which is generally points almost directly away from the sun.
Yeah.
Because
of our sponsor,
Yes.
Solar Wind.
Solar
right?
Wind.
It
Solar
all
Wind
comes
is the
together.
only thing out there that's pushing it because it's I mean,
nothing in this podcast happens by chance.
Except
when you
fireworks.
see images of comets, you always think it's traveling directly away from the direction the tail is, right? Because that's what would happen like in an atmosphere or something like that, because it's the air resistance that's pushing
Right.
the tail back.
Yeah.
But here, there's none of that, right? There's not any resistance. So the tail is just pushed by or at least the ion tail is just pushed by solar wind. So it points directly away from the sun. So you can see where the sun is if
And
you know where the ion tail is.
the dust tail is a little bit, right? Because
And
a
the
lot
dust
of the
tail also does the
dust
same thing,
things will
except
charge
it's a lot
bits.
heavier bits, and so it doesn't get pushed
As
nearly
much.
as easily, and so it gets kind of left behind.
It's sort of
So
more
when
curved usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when a comet is on its way back out away from the sun, it's actually heading in the direction of its own tail,
Yeah.
of its own plasma or ion tail.
It's chasing
Right.
its own tail.
It's
Right.
chasing its own
Right.
tail.
Just like
Exactly.
a dog.
Right. Except in a straight line, which would be hard
Well,
to do.
It's
that
an
would
orbit.
be a dog
It's not
running.
really a straight line.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a really
so,
big circle.
So the Solar Orbiter spacecraft will pass through at the end of this month, beginning of June. First the ion tail, then the dust tail, and it doesn't have instruments specifically to detect dust particles.
Okay.
But if it flies through the dust tail, and if there's enough dust there that'll smack into the spacecraft, it still might be able to see those.
Yeah, there's been some interesting analysis from some of the wind spacecraft. So there's a bunch of spacecraft we have that look at like the solar wind environment and the sun. And if you have little instruments like little probes that can detect electric fields or ions, things like that, when a dust particle hits the spacecraft, it'll actually generate its own it'll break apart and generate its own little plasma. And so usually you can detect that signature on the different electric field sensors.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, there's been some really cool analysis done for some of the, like the size, because you can get really tiny particles actually that because they hit at a high speed, they make a whole plasma and you can detect them.
They vaporize a little tiny pit on the metal of the spacecraft and produce this. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the Pioneer and Voyager spacecraft where they first, I think, encountered this when it was flying through Saturn's rings. And they noticed these weird signals on their plasma instruments. And then this whole thing became, it's like, oh, our spacecraft is accidentally also a dust detector.
Yes.
So that'll be some fun serendipitous science. Guess what, astroquarks?
What?
It's time for trivia.
Yes.
All right.
Is it about incidents that didn't happen on May 15th?
That's right.
Yes.
Our listeners have no idea what you're talking about because we edited that out of our last episode. Thank God. So, no, our trivia is in commemoration of the final flight of the Mercury program, which we mentioned earlier.
Oh, God, I'm going to
And the upcoming resumption. Oh, it's not about Mercury specifically. It's about human, crewed, personed, peopled spacecraft. The upcoming resumption of human spaceflight from the U.S., etc. So we have human spaceflight trivia as of April 9th, so about a month ago, and I don't think it's changed, but it has only by a couple.
I was younger then.
566 people have flown into space.
566?
566 people from 41 different countries, according to
That blows my mind.
Fédération Aéronautique
41?
Internationale.
Yeah. I would have guessed it was like 7.
So a lot of countries have, written a check to Russia to get a ride, to take somebody up.
That
So,
many?
yes,
And Lance
2/3
Bass still hasn't gone.
2/3 of those countries their representatives were flown on Russian spacecraft. Only 3 countries have actually launched people: Russia prior to that, Soviet Union, the United States, and China. In any event, our question is multi-part, of course.
Shocking.
The first question, the main question, is how many people? What's the most people that have been in space at one time? When was that? So, how many people were in space at one time, and when was that approximately? And I didn't write multiple choice, so you just have to guess it from the set of all possible dates and all possible integers.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I mean, between like...
It's not going to be 9 million. Right?
Well, between 19... Oh, yeah, that's true. We have to know the number and the date and an approximate year or something?
You do.
Okay.
Or terrible things will happen.
There haven't been threats previously, but it's pretty scary. All right.
Well, she said you have to know, so, right. And then the follow-up question will be, when was the last time that there weren't any people in space?
Ooh.
Because there have been people in space continuously for some period of time. When was the last time there weren't any people in space? And then the final follow-up question
get them
for
all at
you,
once.
you're going to give them to you all at once, is if you take all of the trips of people to space, all the person days, so like if Addie goes up to space for a year and Jim goes up to space for a year, that's 2 years of a person in space. If you take all the people who've traveled in space, add them all up, what is it equal to for like one person? How much time?
How many people years in space?
How many person years in space?
A long time.
Okay. So we'll come back to that after our other 2
10.
science topics. And I want to jump all the way out to the cosmological, mind-blowing stuff with
All right. Well, this is
Top
a fun mix of the down to earth, the biological, and the cosmological. There are certain folks who think that life on Earth is a crazy, crazy coincidence that it happened, right? So we still don't have a good handle on how life comes from lifelessness, right? Life on Earth obviously is based on DNA or RNA, which are these long molecules that contain lots of kind of individual pieces, and the point of life is it replicates, right? So the fundamental unit that you need to start any kind of life is some kind of self-replicating system.
And even that's a little like Right, that was we talked previously about like, is a virus alive? 'Cause
Right,
it
right,
can
right, right.
replicate, and it's so complicated.
Right. It is ridiculous. I mean, it's the kind of thing you might think by now we'd have figured out how to do in a lab, but we haven't because it's very, very complicated. And some people think it's very, very complicated because what you basically need is to randomly get together all of the pieces of a piece of RNA so that it becomes this self-replicating thing. And the number of individual pieces, nucleotides, that you need to make that happen is something like, I don't know, 60 or...
I think it's 100.
Or 100, yes. It's not known what the minimum thing is, but they think it's definitely more than 40 or 50.
40 to 100.
Right, so it's definitely more than like 40 pieces. And to randomly get that many nucleotides in the right sequence...
So that it then becomes able to replicate
so
itself.
that it becomes able to replicate is literally astronomically small.
Which is what connects it to our astronomical podcast.
Exactly. So then they think about like the number of solar systems in our observable universe. And that's a thing that is, to a couple of orders of 10 knowable, right? Because we know how many stars roughly there are in our galaxy. We know roughly how many galaxies there are in the observable universe.
Which, it's worth pausing to just say, well done, people.
It's amazing.
Well
it's
done
amazing.
for figuring that out.
Yeah.
Because that's 100 years ago, couldn't say that.
No, this is the first generation kind of humanity that has had some concept of the size of our universe. And that's amazing to think about. That's why I got into physics and astronomy and stuff in the first place.
I did because of Star Trek, but whatever.
Yeah, same diff.
Not 2001.
2001, actually, that did predate.
Yeah. But the number of stars in the universe, well, I mean, again, you're going to be off by a few orders of magnitude maybe, but it's somewhere on the order of 10 to the 23 or 10 to the 24, maybe 10 to the 22, depending on how you want to define these things. But
in the observable universe.
So there's something like a few hundred billion to a trillion stars in our galaxy. That's 10 to the...
For us, a billion is 10 to the 9.
10 to the 9.
Is it different
so
for other
100...
people?
It is. It's 10 to the 12 for some people.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our listeners in the UK can correct me, but I believe in the UK a billion is 10 to the 12.
What? I would doubt that.
What?
But I don't know. We'll have to have our listeners correct us.
I'm pretty sure that's at some
Why would
point.
that be true?
At some point, that was a thing.
They do have a mix of units over there.
At some point, maybe I'm just showing my age, but at some point in my life, there was a place on the planet Earth where a billion was a million, not 1,000 million.
Okay.
In the U.S., it's 1,000 million.
Yeah, so a few hundred billion would be 10 to the 11 or maybe 10 to the 12 if you got to a trillion stars in our galaxy. And then there's about that same number of galaxies in the observable universe. So
is this related to the Drake equation?
Well, this is just saying that if you want to look at the entire observable universe, there are something like 10 to the 24-ish places to look, solar systems in which to look.
Right.
And so if each solar system has about one place that's going to be good for life, that means about that many places to look for life. But it turns out that that's just not enough if you just want to randomly make RNA that will self-replicate.
You got it. If you're rolling the dice.
If you're just rolling the dice and just randomly adding, throwing these nucleotides together and looking to randomly get one of these things, you won't do it with 10 to the 24
with 10 to the
star
22
system.
or 10 to the 24 chances and a few billion years or whatever.
Yeah, 10 billion years
It's
to
not
do
great
it.
odds.
Because the odds of actually ending up with the right thing is just so tiny.
But it's not just random.
So my high school physics teacher did this calculation or some variant of it to prove to his high school physics class that I was taking that God exists.
Oh, geez.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and this is so again, this is we weren't reading the article that was saying that, but it is. Some people wonder about why we haven't seen. I mean, we've talked about this many times. Why haven't we contacted other aliens by now? It may be that's because they're not out there, because that kind of great filter is the very beginning. Right? It's next to impossible to start life in the first place because it has to randomly by chance happen. But the numbers indicate that it shouldn't have even happened in our observable universe, right? That it's so unlikely that it might not have happened.
Okay,
but
now you've set it up.
We've set it up. So then
but there's life.
Take it home.
There is life. Well, the thing is, our observable universe isn't all there is, right?
Oh.
So the entire universe It's bigger. It's bigger.
What?
We know it's bigger. We don't know how much bigger exactly, but theories of inflationary, inflation being that really rapid expansion of the universe in the very first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, causes the whole universe to expand so rapidly so that we only see a little part of the universe. So our observable universe is only a tiny piece of the whole universe. And how big the whole universe is, entirely up for grabs. But one reasonable estimate based on some inflationary hypotheses is something like there would be 10 to the 100.
I want to make some inflationary
Google.
hypotheses.
A Google number
Freaking
of
Google
stars.
number of star systems.
Wow.
And if there were that, in that kind of a universe, you would expect
So
life
that's
to arise.
the universe.
Right. Well,
This whole-
that's at least one inflationary bubble in the universe.
Jeepers.
The
Frickin'
universe is bigger
cosmologists.
than that.
What?
Because in the view of a lot of inflationary cosmologists, the entire universe is, again, much larger than that, but different portions of the universe inflate differently and at different times in different ways. And so,
Jeepers.
but just our part that inflated the way that our universe inflated, that still is much larger than the observable universe and still might contain something like 10 to the 100. Again, that number could be off by a huge amount, but
Right.
10 to the 100.
It's big
star
enough,
systems.
at least. It certainly could be big enough so that this incredibly against all odds thing
Right.
Yeah.
has enough chances that it happens.
One of the
And
interesting
it's
things,
so
though, right?
sad and depressing, though, if that's
like-
what the deal is.
But like
Right,
a lot
right,
of the
right.
things we study, right? Like the formation of planets and other things, like a lot of things sticking together and forming bigger objects, right? Depend on sort of like a tail of a distribution.
Yeah.
Right. So like there's a lot of like sort of statistical things where if you have enough of it happening, I don't know.
So
Also, we
really-
exist.
So
probably.
all of this, this
So it's
paper that we were
possible
looking
that
at and
not
discussing.
only this paper sort of suggests that not only would we be the only life in the observable universe of 10 to the 24 stars, but the only life in the entire inflationary bubble of the universe of 10 to the 100 frickin' stars. Well, at least we can sit back and say, you know what? We've done a bang-up job.
Yeah, we're doing a great job with the
Cue the fireworks.
right. Ta-da!
No, and this is, of course, this is the
People.
a very pessimistic view of this.
Cosmologists.
One of the interesting kind of conclusions from this is if we do find some life somewhere else. I mean, we're looking for it. We're looking for it in our solar system. We're looking for it in other solar systems. Say we find it. What that indicates is just that it's not entirely random, that there's some
right.
other mechanism, right? So it's not just randomly pile nucleotides together and wait to get the thing that
So
self-replicates.
okay.
That there might be some other mechanism, and that there absolutely might be.
I mean,
right?
it's like cooking, right? You can just randomly
By
pile
other
some
mechanism,
stuff
we
together.
don't necessarily mean, some deity or something. We just mean there could be some other physical or chemical or biological or mechanism at work
thing
here.
going on.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that means that there would be some really interesting discussions if we do discover life elsewhere of a different flavor than what I had sort of anticipated the kinds of discussions would be.
Right.
So
Can I come back to the
please, the
term
billion?
So
Yeah.
in Wikipedia, it says previously in British English, but not in American English, the word billion referred to exclusively to a million millions. However, this
Yes.
is no longer common, and the word has been used to mean
Josh is
1,000 million
old.
for several decades.
several
Yeah,
decades.
you're an old guy. That's
it is one of the reasons I like Star Trek is because of the episode Requiem for Methuselah about a person who turns out is actually thousands of years old. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Great.
I see what you're getting at.
Right.
What
So
you're getting at.
I sometimes forget
It is
myself.
easy to mix up knowledge from
I sometimes
thousands
this
of
is
years.
the 21st century, right? We have computers, things. Sometimes I mix it up, and I'm thinking I'm like back in Alexandria or something. Anywho,
Anyway,
I was right, and I am ancient.
you also like to know random things like that, so maybe
I
that's
do
what
like to
you
know
were-
random things, and I was in England several decades ago,
All right.
and I have a pretty good memory.
I was in England
Props.
several years ago.
I was in England.
I've heard of England.
I was in England in 1971.
I was not.
Anyway, I'm sure people are fascinated to know when we were all last in England. Let's, as we come back to our trivia, just to touch base on this little story about Pluto's atmosphere.
Just a little story for
just
a
a
little baby
Little
body.
baby planet. Pluto
Use the P
has a.
word.
I did. Pluto has a sort of an eccentric or egg-shaped orbit. And for the New Horizons mission, which flew by there a few years ago, one of the reasons they were kind of in a hurry to get that mission to happen, and Alan Stern, the PI, was highly, highly motivated to get that mission to happen in a timely manner, shall we say. And one of the scientific arguments for that was that at the time, Pluto is at the sort of closer to the sun part of its orbit, and it actually moves, at times it's closer to the sun than Neptune. Is that
Right.
I think right?
Yes.
And then at its most distant, it's 50% further away from the sun than Neptune. So that's a big difference. And even though way out there the sun is not particularly warm and toasty, it's not exactly the oven at the heart of children or whatever. What was the what was the line?
The heating,
The heat.
central heat.
Central heat for children. It's a very dim central heat for children out at Pluto's distance, but there's
really
a big
grim.
difference. There's a big difference between being 30 AU from the sun and being 50 AU from the sun. And
Yes.
so Pluto was known to have an
20 AU.
atmosphere at the current time. That's very good. Pluto is known to have an atmosphere at the current time, and there was concern or some models that were saying that as Pluto moved further away from the sun, the temperatures would drop and the atmosphere would collapse, essentially. It would freeze back down
Yeah.
onto the surface of the planet. And so they wanted to
Frost
get
out.
there to see that planet, sort of like a giant comet in some sense that way.
Good tie.
Anyway, new analyses of Pluto's atmosphere
Using some ground-based observations.
Earth-based.
Earth-based, yes.
from the Sophia Observatory, where
So
they...
sort of Earth-based.
Yeah, Sophia's a...
It's Earth-based.
It's not ground-based, though. That's
it's not
why
Sophia is a
ground-based.
satellite that flies on a big
plane.
747.
It's a plane I
Our,
haven't flown
our
on.
audience of one here has made observations using Sophia telescope, which is inside a big 747. And so they managed to observe a stellar occultation by Pluto, where using the ability of the airplane to fly, they could fly into the shadow, the teeny tiny shadow that was very briefly cast on the Earth by Pluto of this very distant star, and learn something more about the atmosphere of Pluto, which is that it's hazy.
Just like Titan.
Like Titan is very hazy, Saturn's moon is Titan.
They're probably
so-
both very nitrogen-y, right? We think.
Probably.
We think,
Yes.
Pluto's.
Yeah, my poor
Atmosphere is
understanding
mostly
of planetary
nitrogen?
atmosphere makes me surprised that there's any atmosphere of Pluto, and then
Yeah.
Right.
definitely surprised that there's a hazy atmosphere. I don't really
Right.
understand what's going on.
Well,
And I
it's a
don't-
super thin
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Sure.
But you can see it in pictures, and we will be posting those pictures. That'll be our featured picture for this episode
Ooh.
because we now have featured pictures. But that haze suggests perhaps that the atmosphere is a little bit more robust against this freeze-out process.
Because it's how many years later now?
Well, it's moving on out,
Moving on out?
but I don't.
But it does take
To
a very
that-
long time to get all the way out to its
It
most
does.
distant.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
one
orbital-
year on Pluto is what, 200 and something?
It's hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't remember the exact number, but Uranus is 84 years, and Pluto's roughly twice as far. So whatever 84 to the 1/2 power, 1.5 is, I think.
Yep.
Anywho, now we've zoomed back in from 10 to the 100 stars to a distant planet, and now to people
People.
flying in space around the Earth.
Oh, I'm going to embarrass myself.
First part of the
It's fine.
question is, what's the greatest number of people that have been in space at any one time? And then can you take a stab at when that might be? So you should think that you can think this out, think it out, talk it out loud, like you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
So, I don't know. I mean, they got
I
a lot of
was-
people on the
Start with
ISS.
some numbers.
There
Like
used
how,
to be other space stations like
So-
Skylab.
so how many people are on ISS?
I want to
I
say
don't
it's on the
know,
order of
like-
like 12 or 14.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say something like 13, 14.
Yeah, because shuttle had a maximum complement of like 7,
That's correct.
and there were a couple of times.
But there have never been 2 shuttles up at once.
No. But there have been
No.
people on the ISS and then people going up to the ISS
There
on
you
the
go.
shuttle.
Right.
And
And so what's the complement of the ISS? Do you know?
Most of the time these days it's 6 or less
Uh-huh.
because
That's how many beds they've got.
We will. Well, no, it's because we rely on Soyuz, and you have to be able to have your emergency escape vehicle and the one that brought you up. So you can only have like 6 at a time right now.
6. So 6 and 7. 13. So
Well,
let's
Soyuz
go with
does
one
3.
less than that. 12.
Soyuz does 3. Shuttle does 7.
Yeah.
So that'd be 10. I wanted to say 12.
All right. I'm going to say 12 with Eddie.
It's actually 16.
Oh.
Briefly.
Is it from Apollo's?
No, it isn't. It's from,
from
you all
ISS?
were all on the right. You had all the right numbers.
They weren't all on the ISS at the same time?
No. So what happened was it was hard to track this down, but the normal full complement for ISS is 6.
6.
The full complement for shuttle is 7.
Correct.
And then, as you mentioned, Addie, 3 people can go up on a Soyuz to the shuttle.
To the station.
So it happened one time that you had a full load of people on ISS.
Uh-huh.
You had a replacement crew of 3 going up on Soyuz, so add 6 plus 3.
9.
And then you also had, partially overlapping with that, a 7-person shuttle mission that was not doing
unrelated
crew
to the
rotation.
ISS.
It was related to the ISS because it was like a construction thing, but they weren't doing crew stuff because when shuttle was flying, they would take people and have that sort of thing. But there was one time where 7 people went up and they were doing not a crew thing, but at the same time they were up.
Construction.
A Soyuz launched with 3 people to do a crew rotation plus, so 3 plus 6 plus 7. 16. So that was in, anyway,
That was in
shout a year.
1998.
That was in 1987.
No.
2010, who cares? And so
It was ISS.
It was not up in 1987.
when's the last time that there were no people in space?
I don't know. Sometime before ISS, after Skylab. 1987.
So guess that year again. 1993.
No, you got it to have the last time. So going back in time from now,
Yes.
people in space, people in space, people in space until the first time from now going backwards that there's nobody in space. So that's going to be basically when we first started permanently habitating the ISS, which was much later than that. The date is October 30th, 2000.
2000. When did we start building ISS?
I swear it's been around
Before
forever.
that, but we didn't inhabit it
No,
until
I knew that. I just didn't.
the first ISS crew took off on a Soyuz on Halloween 2000. And from that date, there have been people in space continuously for the last nearly 20 years.
2000.
Your follow-up, if you take all of the people days in space and add them up, how many years does that work out to?
So you said there were 566 people there?
566 people have gone into space.
At least once.
So what do you think the average
Some of
stay
those have been in
time
space
is?
for like 3 minutes.
Right.
Only a couple.
Some have been in space for a whole year.
Some have only a couple.
Only a couple, yeah.
Right.
So I'd say on average, like a tenth of a year, so 56.6
Years.
147.
Jim's going to get this one with 77 years.
Nice.
Not bad.
Yeah. How many, just as a final follow-up that I didn't prime you for, how many person days of spacewalks of all those? If you add up all the time that people have been outside of a spacecraft and add that all up, what do you get?
42.
106.
Jim is on fire. 100 days.
I'm losing the human spaceflight question.
Yeah.
What is happening?
To Jim, who doesn't know, is like, what? How many people are on the space station? I don't know. Yeah.
3.
Well, while it may have felt like the time since you last ate at a restaurant, it was just another episode of Walkabout the Galaxy. If you like this episode of Walkabout the Galaxy, also like us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, Tinder, Grindr, Vine, Periscope, Snapchat, eBay, Amazon, Google, and of course, walkaboutthegalaxy.com. Follow us on Twitter
At walk_the_galaxy.
and ask us questions anywhere using hashtag WalkaboutTheGalaxy. Our theme music was composed by Richard Jerusik. Production assistance is provided by Diego Rodriguez. Jillian Gloria is Director of Marketing. Thanks to our listeners in Sweden and around the world. Stay safe. I'm Josh Caldwell.
I'm Addie Dove.
And I'm Jim Cooney.
We're the astroquarks, signing off until the next episode of Walkabout the Galaxy.
Fireworks.